Alright, so in this video I'm going to go over how the image upgrade works. I'm going to show you how it's done, and then we're also going to refactor the code so that it's in a reusable package that anyone can use that's using Containerd to get this type of functionality that I demoed in the previous video. So let's go ahead and jump into the upgrade file and see what this looks like. Oops, too far. So this is the upgrade file. To get a new image, whenever we do boss upgrade, we provide an ID that we want to upgrade and then the ref to the new image that we want to get. So once we have those, we need to get that image or download it, and what this get image function does is it basically just asks Containerd, hey, grab me this image. If you don't have it, let's fetch it and unpack it into a snapshotter. And so the way Containerd is built is we have a bunch of separate services. They're not coupled with each other, but they still are very nice to work with when you combine it as a whole package to build out your container system. So one thing you have to realize is just because you pulled down an image and got its content, it's not unpacked into a snapshotter. So after we fetch it, we also need to unpack it into our snapshotter. And with Containerd, you don't have kind of a default snapshotter on a daemon where you can say where you only get overlay or ZFS or overlay or AUFS. You can have different snapshotters per containers. So you can unpack images into all the snapshotters. You can just use one because overlay is good and you like it, or you can launch a container with overlay. You can launch another container with BetterFS, and you can launch another container with ZFS. It doesn't matter within Containerd. So once we have our new image, we need to start this upgrade process. And this pause and run method, all it really does is grabs the task. If the container's running, we pause it so that any of these file system operations that we do are atomic and we have a consistent snapshot. Alright, so I have this Flux client. This kind of handles these revisions, and after that we grab our container, we do an update with our new image. So this sets the container's image to this new one, and then we ask our Flux to save a new revision for this container, and we can jump into this method here and look at it real quick. So in the save, we grab our container info, we get that new image that we set, and then we create a new snapshot for that container based upon the image, the container ID, and its current snapshot key. And so this new method here, we're basically just doing image operations. We want to get the rootfs for this image, and that'll return a list of diff IDs. And this is basically all the IDs for every layer in the image that creates it. And when we have this list, we need to convert that into like a single key that we can identify that image's snapshot with. So we just get the chain ID based upon all these diffs. And then we also need to set some labels. So we do have separate services in Containerd, but there's a lot of consistency between those, and almost all the services have, and all the API objects have labels on them that you can query on, you can set different information for, and so on. So we need to set a GC label because Containerd does have a GC where if a snapshot gets orphaned or other objects within Containerd are orphaned, they're not referenced by an image or a container or something like that, it'll clean it up to make sure we keep your file system lean and you only have what you use. So with these revisions, we're creating multiple revisions or multiple snapshots for a container, but the container only references one at a time. We need to set this GC root label to make sure the garbage collector doesn't delete these behind our back. And then we set a label for what image is used. And then if we have a previous snapshot, we set a label with the previous revision to that, and this creates the OSX time machine look where it's a linked list where you can roll back to a snapshot, ask it for its previous, look at the label on that snapshot for its previous one, roll back again, and so on. And so finally, after we have that, we have our new image. We need to create a snapshot for it, and so we call into the containerd snapshot service. We tell it, I use overlay, this constant is overlay in containerd, so I just keep it at that, and we ask it to prepare a new one. And because we want to manage snapshots entirely with this Flux package, after we created our new revision, the ID for this revision is up here. It's just the container ID and a timestamp for when that new revision was made. And we use that as our snapshot key for the container. And we want to base the snapshot on our parent, which is the chain ID for the image we got, and we set our labels. And we'll get our mounts back that we can use later in the save method. So now that we have a new revision created, we need to get our snapshot service back, and we need to create a diff of our container's current RW layer. So we got our container information here, and this is its current snapshot key. So we use this rootfs package and ask it to create a diff based upon its current snapshot, and this will give us the content of the RW layer. And so after we do that, we have our snapshot of the new image, we have the diff of our current RW layer. We need to apply that old RW data on top of this new image, and we just use a file system applier, and all of these are containerd packages, which makes it super simple for you to use and do all these complex operations in a consistent way. And all we do is we ask the applier to apply our diff upon our snapshot mounts, which is what we created up here and the mounts that we got. So after we do that, we just update the container again with an opt of this Flux package called with revision. We give it that revision, and basically all that does is set the snapshot key on the container to the new revision that we want it to be at. And containerd will do this update, and at the end we just kill the task so that it gets bumped, and the boss agent will restart it, and then our container's on this brand new image with all our current data. And so before we start refactoring this package, let's look at the rollback code. And basically a rollback is we load our container, we ask for the previous snapshot or previous revision of its current snapshot, and then we get some metadata from the snapshot service. Okay, what was the image? Let's get that image, and then we call a container update again and say set your new image, and then with revision. And then we do the same thing, kill the task so it's bumped, and now we've rolled back. And if we look at this with revision opt, we can see all it's doing is setting the snapshot key again to our previous one that we got in the rollback. Okay, so that's basically how it works. It's super simple but super useful to be able to upgrade images and not lose your data, and kind of the containerd client, like we're doing all of this client side. We're not modifying the containerd daemon to do this. This is all client side operations with the containerd client and talking to the daemon. And so what we need to do is we need to refactor this Flux package to be useful for everyone. So everyone should be able to import boss Flux and use these containerd options to get this upgrade and rollback functionality. So one thing, let's look at the create method. One thing within the containerd client is we have this ops pattern where many of the methods, from snapshotters to containers to tasks, they take kind of required fields and then a list of options that you want. And what this does is we wanted a client where people could extend very easily, but whenever you're a contributor going into a project or you're working on a dev team at your company, you want kind of a library of options that you can share, you can use. People can just import these options and get all this nice functionality without breaking up the flow of like creating a container and doing different operations. The client flow always looks the same across projects, companies, but then your kind of logic of how your system stands out is implemented in these option patterns. So let's get started and refactor this Flux file into a package that's useful for everyone and clean up some of our upgrade and rollback code so that it looks cleaner. Where someone looks at this rollback, it's not like a simple update. They're like doing stuff. They need to know about the snapshot, or they need to know about these labels. Like we just want a simple option that anyone can import and get this functionality. So right now this flux.go is in the main. You can't import it into other packages. So let's go ahead and create a package and move this flux.go file into it, and we'll start refactoring things. Alright, so let's change our package name here and start working on this. So let's go from the top down and look at our create. And because our Flux package manages all the snapshots for a container, we need to start by, whenever we create a container, we want to use a snapshot managed by Flux. And we don't want to have to create a new Flux client and pass it into stuff. We just want simple options. So let's delete this client and let's rename this op to with new snapshot. And we want a simple API Flux, where you just import this Flux package. You say with new snapshot when you create a container, and now you have a Flux managed snapshot. So let's go down to where this current code is and start refactoring this. So with new snapshot, and this was already a new container option. We just need to modify things a little bit. So it takes an image, and we did have a couple calls to our Flux type here that we want to delete. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and let's refactor this new, because this is the part where we're calling in. And this new function, let's change this to create. It's no longer a method. And we also need the containerd client, which is what we get as part of the payload. Whenever this new container function iterates over all the ops, it provides a context, it provides the client, and then the container's metadata object. So we have this client that we can pass in, and you can get the container ID from this metadata object and various things. So let's go back to this new function and switch this from being a method to just a function. Create. And we need to take our client here. Okay, so we went over this before. We just need to do some simple refactoring. It's not t.client anymore, it's just client. And that should be it. I don't see any other areas where we're calling our type for. So let's go back to with new snapshot. We create it. We'll set the snapshot key to our revision key and set the image name on the container. So this should be good to go. And our create should be done, and we have our new import up here. So now that we have managed snapshots, now we need to work on our upgrade process. So upgrade, we have a few things. We're doing 2 updates on the container, setting things weird, and we're creating a revision from that existing save method, but I want something more simple than that. I just want a single option that we can call where we just load the container and add a method call to that. So let's delete these, let's delete that update, and so we have a single one. And so with this, we'll make a flux option with upgrade, and that will take an image that we want to upgrade to. So most of this will be modifying the save function here, but let's go ahead and go down to the bottom and write our opt, and it'll have the same signature as this with new snapshot, but we're calling it with upgrade. Okay, so within with upgrade, what we did was our upgrade file there called save, and that was saving we'll change this to save. We do need to add the client, and then we need our upgrade image. So we can remove this because we're not doing that whole hop of, okay, we have our new image, upgrade the container first so we can pass in that image and then get the data back. We're kind of providing it through here through this opt, so we get it refactoring these into ops. We also get to clean things up too, which is nice. So now we have the container information that we want. We can do our create here, where we provide the client and the image that we're upgrading to, and because this one's a save, we need our existing snapshot key as the previous one. And then we need to remove our T here, grab our snapshot service, fix our call for that client, fix another one, and this should be good. So our save function works, and then in our upgrade here, what we do is we have our revision, we do a save context client, we have our image, and what else went in there? I forget so quickly. And just the container. Oh, and actually this is even nicer. We don't have to get an existing container. We can use the container metadata. So we don't have to get this container and call info. We would already have that. So let's change this to containers.container, and that will be a pointer to that metadata object, and we'll just rename this to C. So we need to change our info here to just C, like in our ops, and we should be good with that refactoring. So let's handle our error here, and now we need to do our update. So c.image is equal to i.name, the name of our new image, and c.snapshot key is equal to revision.key, and then we'll just return nil after we do that. So now that we have our with upgrade done, we have a nice opt, and then in our calling code we got away from a couple calls to update, some code in between, and we just have a simple API now that you can import to upgrade things. So finally, a big hunk of crap here is this revision code. We have all this trash in here where we want to change this to be a simple opt with our upgrade, and we'd like this to be just flux dot with rollback, and that should be nice and clean. So let's clean up this code a little bit, and let's port this code over. So let's create our new opt here, and we with rollback. Alright, so let's start implementing this. So the first thing we need to do is go back up here. It looks like we're calling our previous method to get the previous revision, so let's change this into an unexported function, and we'll need our client, and let's go ahead and change our containerd.container to containers.container, because in this option we'll already have our metadata, and we'll do the same here. Clean up these t.client calls to this client, change info.snapshotter to c.snapshotter because we already have that, and then it doesn't look like we have anything else. Alright, so that should give us our previous one. So in here it looks like our first step is previous, just to call previous. We'll change this name so we don't have any weird issues. Previous, we need our context, client, and container. So now that we have our previous snapshot, let's go over here, delete this line, and let's get our snapshot service. And again, we don't need that info call because we already have the container info from this as part of the option. And then we'll stat our previous revision here, stat its key, and that's where we get our snapshot image from the label. So we'll port this code over in here. So now we have our previous snapshot, we have our previous image. Let's delete this code, and then finally we get an image which I don't think we need anymore because we just need a simple rollback. Like, I'm not sure why I had that. It doesn't make any sense. Why did I have that before? Oh well, we'll delete it and see. So finally, let's return nil after we set c.image to snapshot image, and c.snapshot key to the prev got key. I misspelled this already. And this one needs to be prev. Okay, so now we have this opt. I don't think we need this image anymore. We should be good to go, and that really cleaned up our rollback command where we're just grabbing the container, using our flux package, and calling with rollback. Okay, let's make this, see where all I messed up, and it looks like there's our little image, so 71. So let's go into 71 and see. So save once an image. Oh, that's easy. We just renamed that, and then instead of container.id, since we have our metadata, we just do c.id. So let's make this and an upgrade now. We're missing flux. We just needed to resave that, so our import's done. Let's make it, and it's still yelling at us. Upgrade 59. With upgrade. So why isn't it happy? Let's look at our with upgrade option. Containerd image. Oh, this needs to be an update container opt instead of a new task opt. It's the same signature, it's just different types for these methods. Alright, so it's building, it's good. We could test it out, but I'll do that later because this video is already way too long. But last thing I want to do is I want to take these ops and just move them to the top of the file just so they're easy. And before I commit this, I'll add some comments up here, but that's kind of how the containerd option pattern works, where anyone can import this flux package now and get container upgrades and rollbacks for free without writing any code. They just go into their code that they're calling to containerd, add these options, and you're good to go. So hopefully you liked seeing how this functionality works, and kind of this explanation of how the ops pattern works and how you can start building out libraries of containerd options for you, your contributors, your coworkers, where you can all share these things to do some really powerful stuff with containers. So thanks.